Good morning. Hello, everybody. Welcome to our Natural Health News Live show. Here it is September 11th, and we've honored the memory of all those lives lost. My connection on YouTube's a little unstable. I might have to bring it back up. We'll see. Oh, thanks, Grand Design. Let's see if I can get this all set up. I have a lot of news to share. Let's see. We've got Sunstar on from Canada. Hello. Okay, it looks like YouTube's all good. So welcome all of you. I'll kind of go through. Might have some glitches here with YouTube. I'm not sure, but I wanted to honor September 11th by starting a little bit later with our show. So I also today, gosh, it just seems like one hit after another in terms of news I'm going to share with you. So I've got a new reports out of the CDC that's very interesting with restaurants. A new really crazy article that comes out of UCLA that talks about when COVID, even new news about when COVID was here in the US. And then the biggest one's out of Nature, and I'm going to highlight this. So we'll go through the news in the first part of this, and then the second part we will go through questions, your questions live. And also I posted yesterday about our questions in the show today and paying respects to September 11th, but also expressing concerns. Hey, Daisy, expressing concerns for all of those on the West Coast. We have a huge following of friends and followers in Washington, Oregon, and California, and even in other Western states and cities. And so for all of you who might be tuning in and you are dealing with wildfires, we actually had a few folks say that they could see the fires, it was at night, which is really crazy. So we need to send all of them a ton of energy, lots of protection, and hopefully we will see some weather changes where they can have some decrease and reduction of this insane spread and a lot of water. So I want to put that out there. And then also, we have a lot of news this week on all fronts that's hitting all of us. And I'm going to be completely honest with you. I have total fatigue when it comes to this whole COVID situation. It is hitting kind of its peak level, as I'm sure a lot of parents are also dealing with this, where, some are just a few weeks in. Some of my friends have just started. We're now a month in to classes, technically like tomorrow. And this new life of managing school, virtual learning, and trying to operate is very challenging. So I just want to let you know, if you are dealing with frustrations and angst with regard to the situation, hang in there. I don't know when it's going to get better. We don't have any answers to that. I think there's a lot of ways that we can hopefully accelerate the speed that it gets better with things coming up here in the next few months. But I think most importantly is just keep being diligent, keep wearing your mask, keep social distancing, and now is not the time to give up on that. So let's dig into some news. Globally, we're at 28 million cases, 28.18 million cases. The US is at almost 6.5 million. It's 6.494 and change, which is really crazy. India is still just really growing. They're at 4.5 million. Brazil is at 4.2 million. And if you guys notice, Daisy probably senses I'm a little stressed out. Usually she gives me lots of love. See a little curly cute tail. Instagram can't see her, but she's a cutie pie. Okay, so global news. China began testing this week a COVID nasal spray. It's a vaccine, an intranasal vaccine. And it is the 10th vaccine candidate on the Chinese market. So it's just, I just want to highlight the whole vaccine market, this industry of moving, vaccines. Every country is looking at pushing some sort of vaccine out there, in obviously the safest and most effective way. Now, I want to talk a little bit about where we're at in the US. We had a very bad day yesterday of fatalities. So we had over 1,200 people die of COVID yesterday, and our numbers now are at 195,000 lives lost. And, speaking of September 11th, we honor what was a huge amount of people lost due to September 11th and, the terrorist attacks, and that we honor on every year. And it is something that was jarring. Everybody remembers where they were. Look at COVID, 195,000. It's a lot of people. It is very insane when we really scale it back. I think we're getting used to it, but that is still an outrageous, unnecessary number. Okay, so let me just tell you a little bit of news. California, I'm concerned along that coastline with breathing challenges, and I have some questions that were raised that I'll address from some viewers on YouTube. But it's definitely a concern in terms of air quality, ability to social distance. A lot of families on the West Coast don't necessarily have air, but they're closing their windows to protect themselves from the ash and the pollutants outside. It just gets it's a challenge, and I'm concerned about everybody in California, and that might actually add to how severe some of the COVID cases that might have been mild or moderate, coupled up with poor air quality. We already have stats on that, knowing that communities that had the worst air quality, air pollutants, actually had higher cases of COVID. And then we also know that affects our socioeconomic communities of people of color. So we have to be mindful that there will be an effect of the fires on COVID, and we will see potentially people have greater health conditions or underlying health imbalances, and their immune system already taxed because of the fires. I do want to make a note. Florida had a really bad day in fatalities. They're at 654,000 cases. Every day they're posting anywhere from 2,500 to just below 4,000 new cases. But they are not nearly testing enough, to be honest with you. And they had 213 fatalities yesterday. I watch that state a lot because I have a lot of friends that are teachers, and the teachers are really having a go with this. And one of the things that is challenging and problematic in Florida is that the state is concealing the cases of COVID in the schools, which does not bode well if you're a parent trying to protect your child or make decisions as to, do you send your child to school or not based on your community rate of infection. And you need to know our teachers' aides, principals, everybody working in the school system, from the janitors to the principal and all the kids, if they've got COVID. So that is kind of one thing going on with Florida. I do want to make a note. Let's see, I'm just going to dig into the big news. So let's talk about this news. It was published in the Journal of Medical Internet Research. This is out of UCLA research. And what they did was, the title of the paper is "Excess Patient Visits for Cough and Pulmonary Disease at a Large U.S. Health System in the Months Prior to COVID Pandemic." The goal was to investigate whether excess visits were where the word cough was present in an electronic medical record, if that was the reason for a hospitalization, and then identify those cases that came in and were diagnosed with acute respiratory failure between December 2019 and February 2020. And they do a comparison of 5 years prior. And basically what that means is how many people might have had COVID that we didn't realize was COVID, didn't even know it was in existence. And these people present with respiratory illnesses. And how does that compare back to the years prior? And from that, the conclusion is that COVID-19 was in the LA area before and on Christmas Day. And let me show you a really interesting chart. They have a ton of charts. This is probably the most interesting chart. So just chart A, the blue line is 2020. The previous years are different years. The highest year on here was 2016, 2017. That was a really bad flu year, 2016, 2017. I actually had the flu in December 2017 when we moved up. So the blue line is 2020, and they show, depending on the time frame, December, there are big peaks middle and later part of December, and then also in February and March, that they could extrapolate based on electronic medical records, the condition of COVID in these cases. And these are outpatient visits, B's emergency room. So outpatient visits, outpatient clinics, cough, you go to your walk-in. B is hospitalizations, emergency room, major spikes in the emergency room with cough, and then hospitalizations, look at those spikes. So they have identified that and this is for all of you, I have had a lot of people say, I had something in December, and I know for sure it took me 8 weeks to get over, that might have been the case for you. So I think that's very interesting. The other thing I want to highlight is, and it looks like Instagram's buffering a little bit. Let's see. Okay, so one of the things I want to highlight too is that the CDC came out with some interesting data, and it's a small quantity. I want to make that really well known that 314 adults were polled in this. Of that, 154 were positive cases and 160 were negative. And they cover these individuals in 10 states and 11 different healthcare systems. And what's really interesting is, and these are outpatient healthcare facilities, they identify that the individuals, the individuals who've tested positive, a common denominator amongst all of them is that they ate inside a restaurant with 14 days before being ill, showcasing symptoms, which I think is very fascinating. And then also some of the restaurant exposures, that also includes bar or coffee shops, that individuals who go and eat in or visit test positive for COVID over other individuals, meaning that's it's a serious risk, and it's a potential point of COVID exposure. And this again is my first conversation with you all, excuse me, is to not let your guard down. The safest way, and I love supporting our local restaurants. I love supporting, small business owners in any way I can. We do and have done just a little bit of pickup, but they're all from non-chains, and they're all local businesses that we are frequenting as we would normally in person. But this really is a challenge in terms of the community and close contact. They're identifying that these folks, common denominator is they've visited a restaurant. That doesn't mean that they came down with it, but there's also activities. If you visit a restaurant, you have no problem eating inside. You also might be working out at your gym. You might not be wearing masks. There's a lot to that also goes into the number. Now, the other thing I want to highlight, in Virginia, there's a jail outbreak that is being monitored. Out of 380 inmates, 124 right now are tested positive. This is in Hanover, Virginia, and 20 staffers also have tested positive. The other thing, we have a new wedding to chart and track in terms of its link to spreading, a super spreading event. A Minnesota wedding in a small town of Gallant. They have 70 new cases. This is from a wedding that took place on August 22nd. So literally just 2.5 weeks ago. It was an indoor wedding, reception and dancing. And that is a long-term exposure. So that is interesting. I'm sure there's going to be more about that. And then let's just talk about the universities. The universities now, every state has a university that has some degree of COVID spread. So COVID is in universities in all 50 states. They are some of the hotspot outbreaks. 19 hotspots or outbreaks come from, 19 of 25 come from communities that have college campuses in their town. So that is very telling. There is actually I literally had to write it down. The director of the Duke University Global Health Initiative said that having college campuses in your city is like dropping a cruise ship into town, based on the cruise ship spread, just based on the contagion in a close quarters. It just reminds me of college. If you ever did dorm life, it was like, I don't know if that had ever been decleaned in like 30 years. It's disgusting. But with that being said, it's not a duh moment where we have communities like Georgia Southern. I think that's in Valdosta or close to there. They have an outbreak in that small community. University of North Dakota, actually Virginia Tech is on this list, Central Texas College. University of Michigan grad students are actually striking right now. They're refusing to teach undergrads. And I laugh having to, the TA. It's really funny that it's not funny because it's their lives and they're fighting for it. But I mean, they're like, we're not teaching them. So you're going to have to get somebody else to teach these, 1,000, 2,000 level classes. So that is happening at the University of Michigan, the University of Washington, Wisconsin. I think it's Wisconsin-Madison. They've shifted online for 2 weeks due to an outbreak. The University of Alabama that still is the number one school with COVID spread. They have sanctioned 639 students and 3 different student-led organizations, and a 4th one apparently is getting sanctioned each week for violating COVID regulations. And then the University of Mississippi, they are increasing their testing because they have the worst per capita COVID percent per capita on campus. And they actually talk about that community is very much revolved around the campus life, and that will be the main point of spread is the university students. The other thing that I do want to highlight is that, and this is literally reports are coming in this morning about this, Miami University in Ohio, not to be confused with the University of Miami, Florida Hurricanes in Miami. This university in Ohio, they had 6 or 7 college kids who lived off campus in a house. They were having a Labor Day party, and the party was in violation to COVID restrictions or regulations. And the cops roll up, and there are these kids on the porch, and they're drinking beer. And the police, ask for identification, and asking for identification. Apparently, I didn't realize this, that if you have, like the police, when they get your ID, they can scan your ID and it will tell them that you have tested positive or negative. So we have a database that the police have reference for, which is interesting. Obviously, that's going to be something that I would expect. I just didn't realize that. But at any rate, the student that he had the ID with, he tested positive. He was a positive COVID case. And he says to the student, he asks, he says, it came back that you tested positive. He says, oh yeah, a lot of people at this party are positive. So I don't know if that's a COVID specific party, like what we had heard about in June, where there were bets to see who would get sick, or if they were like, well, screw it, we're all sick anyway, might as well stick together. But it did sound that there were people who had not tested positive that were in attendance, which is insane. So, that's just a really great combination, beer and COVID. Really, really awful. So I also want to highlight that the NFL kicked off last night. So the first official games were on. There were, I guess, people in the stands, just kind of like pockets of people, but then they were all bunched together. And so I don't understand how that works. But at any rate, NFL is back. I think college football is still suspended for a few weeks. And the big news is that that's concerning some folks is that the U.S. is suspending inbound travelers, overseas arrivals from having to have COVID tests. Apparently, they tested like 657,000 people. Out of that, 15 tested positive. But knowing what we know, even though you've tested 657,000 people, 15 people could greatly enhance your spread. And just the commingling and traffic of, like an airport here in Atlanta, that just seems very, so anyway, that's all of our news today. It just was a doozy of a news day. And next, I want to make sure that I answer a lot of your questions. I do want to address something here. Grand Design says, I've seen articles at Sturgis. Yes, I actually, Grand Design watch Wednesday show. I don't think I have it. It's somewhere back there in my file, but there's a report that's this thick that articulates 260,000 cases in August came from Sturgis. So I dig into that. It's pretty crazy. But the numbers, it's all extrapolated. I wish I could grab that. It's tucked away. But definitely do watch Wednesday show. Okay, so one of the things, and I'm just kind of briefly overview. Yesterday, I posted that we were having the show starting it later for 9/11, and any questions you had, comment down below. And one of our viewers, actually several, and it was also to give healing and protection to all of our viewers who are in California or along the coastline out west dealing with the fires. It's so broad that it's quite devastating. One fire is the entire size of the state of Connecticut, which is crazy. And some acreage burnt in one day equals what would be normally burnt in a year for some firefighters. So, we just are dealing with a lot of angst out there in the air. And one of the questions was, what do I do? I'm doing nasal drops and things like that. And what do I do to limit? Because one of our viewers said that she was experiencing respiratory grief. So there's a lot that you can do. The big thing, if you are out west and you are dealing with fires, these are my recommendations. The first and most critical thing is whether you have air or not. And many folks have houses, apartments, condos that don't have air conditioning because the weather's so temperate. You open up your windows, and if anything, you need heating. But now when you have your windows closed, it gets hot and stuffy. And also with COVID, they say open up your window. So it's a catch-22. What do you do? And so I love to recommend the air filtration, and I have links down below. You have UV plus your Super HEPA multi-layer filter. EnviroCleanse is the brand that I have here in our house. We've met with our concern project, and it looks like YouTube's buffering a little bit. So we've been running those, and I've noticed when I do have those run construction, I would recommend air filter. The other thing I would be doing is natty washes using colloidal silver. The liquid natty wash is very powerful. I'll make sure I post that. And if you can use, salt therapy, diffuse oils in your showers and Exlear. This is a really good nasal spray that is a combination of two really potent antibacterials. It has xylitol, and it also has grapeseed extract, which are very potent. So that's something that I would recommend. The other thing too is I'd recommend some homeopathics. I love Boron's Cold Calm, and they have a sinus calm. The sinus calm would be more of the respiratory grief, and then Umka has an allergy relief. And, the fires would kick up a lot of the normal allergic reactions for even folks that don't have allergies. The other thing too, I would be wanting to monitor and make sure you get your pulse ox. So make sure I think Gabriel ran off with mine. I used to have mine on my desk here. I would make sure you're measuring and monitoring your pulse, your oxygen levels, because that's going to tell you how well are your lungs functioning, how well is your breathing capacity, and also anybody who's concerned or might have COVID exposure at some point now or in the future. Your pulse ox, your pulse ox, the oximeter, the measurement of your oxygen levels in your pulse, that is, or in your blood. That is a really core critical way to evaluate also when is the time for you to go to the hospital. So breathing treatments. The other thing too is very preventatively, folks that have asthma, I'd want to make sure you've got all of your breathing apparatus, any of your prescriptions for breathing treatments, that you have that up to date. And also you have a few on hand in an emergency state, The other thing too is anybody who's dealing with respiratory grief, you want to limit any mucus or mucosal production within your body. So eliminating dairy, eliminating gluten is going to be really critical to help minimize your exposure. So, all right, we've got, let's see, a story. I see something about Florida. Cherie Johnson said, bowling league opened in Florida and only 1/10 of attendees wore the recommended masks. Great. I don't know what is going on with people, and it's just crazy. Okay, so let's see, we've got One Tall Sunflower. Good morning, everyone. This is Mary Lou from California. She says she changed her YouTube and was on a hiatus. Yay! Well, welcome, Mary Lou. I hope you are safe. Let us know if you are in the midst of crazy fires out there. Okay, and Pat Wagner says they have exciting news. A new great grandnephew was born yesterday. Yay! That's fantastic. That's exciting. Yay. Okay, so Jenny from the Block's on. Good morning. She's paying her respects viewing 9/11 ceremonies. Knew someone who worked at the World Trade Center. Then I go to water my plants and I got stung by a wasp. Oh no. Apple cider vinegar is great for that. Apple cider vinegar, this is a little thing, really, really fantastic for the kind of inflammation from an insect bite. And this could be like I use it. Mosquitoes now are in full force in my garden. I'm changing over my garden. And so grab some apple cider vinegar, you can put it right on the insect bite or sting, and it'll calm it down. The other thing that I love is calendula cream. That's usually, it's marigold cream. It's sometimes in a homeopathic form, but really good. Okay, so send me your questions below. This is a live Q&A, very exciting. I don't have any pre-existing questions I'm going to be answering. Tracy says, good morning from Western New York, praying for all those affected by the wildfires and those still dealing with Hurricane Laura. I know, it's just everything. Praying for all those who lost loved ones on September 11th. Lori's watching the vaccine docuseries. Yes, it is very interesting. There's a link if you're interested in learning more about vaccine development, stories that we don't always hear in the news, the good, the bad, and the ugly. Definitely consider checking that out. Lori Ann says, congrats, Pat, from Instagram. Tiff loves Josh. I tried the NasoSure kidney cleanse and felt a little weak. Is this normal? So Tiff, I'm curious how long you tried it. Sometimes, our kidneys are measuring, they're not measuring, but they're in control of our fluid levels, and they also have regulation of our blood pressure. Sometimes when we support our kidneys, sometimes we can see blood pressure numbers drop. Lorianne says the school numbers are crazy. Yes, they are. And yes, we have to keep our guard up. Let's see. Canadian nurses are saying it's been there since 2017. Yikes. Okay, let's see. Okay, so let me see. And you guys are very sweet. I'm rocking my curly hair because it's just so busy in the morning. Just let it go. So this is El Natural. Okay, let's see. Okay, yeah, cell food is good for that. Apple cider vinegar will take. There's some compound in apple cider vinegar. I wrote a blog article, gosh, like 12 years ago, and it was published several times in different Natural Awakenings magazines about the benefits of apple cider vinegar. I don't recall, there is a compound in it that helps that inflammatory response. And for me, I totally deal with that. Okay, so Dwayne, hey Dwayne, he says, my vitamin D test was high, 110. Doctor's not happy and said to cut down to 1,000 to 2,000 daily. I wonder if I should completely stop. I would. At 110, you could stop for a month or two and then go lower dosing. But bravo on picking your values up higher. That is fantastic. June Dykeman, cardiologist suggested taking a beta blocker for my blood pressure. HCTZ is not working. Anything natural I can take. So let's see. There are a few things. So a lot of the beta blockers, there is a specific enzyme reaction happening that the beta blockers blocking. And one of the things that I really like is, gosh, let me think of the name of the compound. There is a compound. I can't remember it right now, but there's a compound that is manufactured by the adrenal glands. So the first kind of thing there is to make sure you don't have adrenal fatigue, that your adrenal, either burnout of adrenals or your adrenals are in high alert phase, that you are in this fight or flight mode. So the question, June, would be, do you feel like your body's in fight or flight mode? And is this blood pressure component related to maybe a stressful event or a series of events in life? That can be one of the reasons why a beta blocker, why they might think it could help, and why the HCTZ is not working. So, supporting the adrenal glands is always going to be beneficial for your blood pressure. And fortunately, you don't hear that from your cardiologist, that you should support your adrenals to lower that whole response mechanism. And a lot of time, the heart's pumping, you get the pressure going. That is all a stress-related response. There are a lot of other things behind that, but it's part of that. And if we can manage your adrenals, then we can manage that. Okay, so Ann Lynn, hey Ann Lynn, 3 weeks ago started taking Thuja occidentalis for stress-related and hereditary hair loss. Per your recommendation, safe to continue long-term? Yes. Is there a no sugar added version? Not that I'm aware of, but yes, you can keep taking it. And I'm curious if you're noticing any changes. Usually 2 to 3 weeks, you start to feel like something's happening a little differently with the scalp. All right, so One Tall Mary Lou is an hour away, hour and a half away from an ongoing fire. That's good. Okay, so you're safe. Oh, she has a farm. Oh, you have a farm. How fun. Okay, let's see. Gabriel decided he wants a pig for his birthday. I don't know how I'm going to make that happen. The kid wants everything. He wants a big blow-up slide that, these big water slides that people apparently rent. Our neighbors rented that, and there's just no way we could do that. Brian is not going to give up his grass for this thing, and it is seriously, like, I think it's 16 feet tall, and it'd just be him. So we are not doing that, and there will be no pigs, but we might do fish. So that might be what he gets. Okay. Lori says a local restaurant was shut down for disinfecting because 2 workers tested positive. Gotta love the tourists spreading germs around. Ugh. Esmeralda, my ferritin levels came back at 26. I've been dealing with low ferritin for years, and sadly my hair shows it. I've lost so much hair. How can I raise my ferritin levels and keep them up? Okay, so this is really exciting. I actually am going to be doing more content on this. I've just recently become a certified clinician in colostrum therapy. What that means is there's a particular type of super bioavailable, nutrient-dense first food, and that's what colostrum is. It's bovine-oriented, so it comes from a cow. And it has all these growth factors. It has all these gut healing chemical properties to it. It is amazing. It turns on the immune system. It regulates the immune system where it's needed. It can close the gaps and fissures of the small intestine. And it actually can increase the iron levels in a human's body. And so, Esmeralda, I would recommend that. And I'll post on the community tab the link. I'm trying to work on a coupon code, and I might have one. So, but I'm putting our dogs on, actually 2 of the 3 on colostrum therapy for healing their challenges. Okay. June says the cardiologist mentioned to calm down my adrenals. All right. That's a very good cardiologist. I'm very excited to hear that. So yes, so it wouldn't be a bad idea to have your adrenal glands tested. You could do a cortisol saliva test. And then once we get that back, we can identify what supplementation, and there will be a need for supplementation either to drive that down, balance it out. Passion flower in the evenings, make sure you get your magnesium, adding the rhodiola and holy basil in the morning, and limiting caffeine, sugar, and trying to de-stress are good first steps for that. Colostrum, yes, I'm going to do a video on it. I'm trying to organize my schedule so I can do videoing. As you can imagine, it's really hard to video with like family in the house and dogs and a child that loves to be on camera. Okay, Pao, yay, good morning. It's good to see you. Grand Design, my ENT doctor said passages are clear, but I have to constantly clear my throat since last 6 months. Neti pot every day, but not much difference. No idea why. So I would add things to the neti pot. So a lot of times when we're dealing with sinus challenges and even ear popping, ear clogging, we are dealing with also elements where we have systemic inflammation. And so systemic inflammation and maybe food or oriented allergy, something that's constantly causing irritation of the passageways. And that's why you hated, even if they're clean, you get, that kind of gunkiness. So the mucosal membrane is, from the nose, mouth, eyes, all the way down the whole entire digestive tract. Let's see. Kim is excited about my hormone special. Yay. Right now we are putting together the design and the details of the landing. It's called a landing page, would be how you end up enrolling. And so that is not my specialty. So I have to help. Have to hire help for that. So I'm hoping to launch it so you guys can get access to that by the 25th. That is the plan. It's what, I don't know if you can, I'll show you my little Post-it note. Launch workshop. So that's on the 25th. That is the goal that I've set for you guys to get access to that. I am really excited. The slides are already written, and I'm working on a bunch of literature and tons of follow-up. So it's going to be comprehensive and extremely potent for any of you wanting to balance your hormones, and you'll always have access to it. So which is exciting. Okay, any suggestions on removing warts? Yes, Thuja is great for wart removal. Also, some people, it's kind of crazy, but sometimes in combination, they'll put duct tape on a wart. Sometimes a little castor oil, duct tape, and those properties also can be very balancing. Some people, where I think the castor oil is really impactful, is people actually have skin tags and not warts. And that easily gets resolved with that, but definitely Thuja for warts, all kinds, all areas of the body. Anything that can help with C. diff. Yes, colostrum would be my go-to. So I will post both on Instagram stories today and the YouTube on my community tab. I'll post what I use, what details I think will be impactful for you, so you guys can grab that. Okay, so let's see. Marina. Hey, Marina. Good morning, Dr. Melissa. If my A1C levels indicate prediabetes, can I lower them naturally? Yes, of course. You can always lower. You can even get yourself out of diabetes if you have been diagnosed. I've seen it, done it, worked with tons of patients and even family. Does this make me high risk for COVID? Yes, it can. So the key is prediabetes and A1C levels. That is an indication of insulin resistance and glucose intolerance, and more than likely high cortisol levels. And so you want to address your adrenals, very, very important. And the other thing is you want to get minerals. So selenium and chromium are going to be two critical, but you want to get the trace ionic minerals, very potent, super bioavailable minerals that will help your body balance. I will be discussing several elements of that in my hormone workshop that I'm hoping to launch on the 25th. So I'll go into that further. And in fact, my plan is, our plans have gotten all derailed with 2020, but my plan had been to do this on a monthly basis. It's a lot to roll out, but once it's out, it is so powerful for all of you. And what happens is I just have a lot of stuff here and I need to get it out to all of you. So I'm working on that now and hope that will just continue through the end of the year with a workshop every month about a different topic. And so diabetes, prediabetes, insulin resistance would definitely be on its own category as well. But there are, Marina, and you probably experienced this, there are symptoms and experiences hormonally that you feel and experience because of the prediabetes. So everything goes together collectively. One Tall Flower, any tips on using sea bumblebee D oil for sleep? Still learning so much. Started to see changes in 3 days. I'm raising my dosage slowly. That's good. What I would say is if you want to use it for sleep, you can have a more potent, powerful dose about an hour to 2 hours before bedtime. It is extremely powerful at regulating the hormones that sometimes are charged up. So there's an cortisol impact where it can help lower cortisol. And it's a neuroendocrine protector. So it's very powerful in that. Grand Design, do vitamins D and K need to be taken together? They can, absolutely. They're in that synergistic category where one very much is needed to equally be balanced by the other. And so there's, sometimes that KD ratio. But I do like recommending that. A lot of times you'll find supplements that have the two. You want to make sure it's K2 and D3. Those are the versions that you want to have. Let's see here. Let's see, grounding sheet, sleep. Yeah, so there's a lot to sleep. I would also put in REM sleep as well, Mary Lou, in that category. I'd love to hear more about how you're using colostrum therapy for our dogs. Yes, so I actually have a blog article that will come out, I think, next week about it. One of the pups, all three are rescued. My first one, Mizuki, my white one, she had parvo. Within like 10 days of me adopting her. And I had no idea what that was. I didn't know how bad it was. I think my ignorance was probably good. And I didn't have a whole lot of time to research because she was so sick. But I'm convinced she nearly died. I fully saved her life. I did all sorts of energy work on her and literally had my alarm set like every 15 minutes. We might have a delivery. I was doing syringe liquids. I was doing sub-Q liquids as well, and syringe puppy food, puppy milk for her because she was so ill, and treated her outpatient for a few days. And I wish I would have known what I know now about colostrum for animals. And there's a lot of detail. And honestly, it's probably the lesser known, really powerful therapy. And you guys know, I always am constantly learning. This year also, a lot of these conferences have gotten derailed. There's a lot of different kind of precursory conditions that then would determine what would be the alternatives or options to like a metformin. So I don't know your specifics. I can see where somebody would say metformin is really great as an anti-aging, because when we have too much sugar, our cells advance. There's something called glycination, and we see advancements in cell damage. That's why we have wrinkles and all sorts of other things on our skin. It's also why you hear older people say, "Oh, my skin is as thin as paper." Like my grandma always used to say that. She'd always be hitting herself and bleeding, and like it'd be slow to repair. And she had diabetes. Mary, is there anything I can do for bone spurs? So bone spurs are kind of tricky because there's usually a mechanical component at play for why they develop. As far as getting rid of them, once once bone mass is there, it's really, you can't other than surgically remove it. But you can be preventative in terms of why. So one, look at the mechanics, look at your structure, maybe muscle impairments. And most of us don't have relationships with PT, physical therapy. Chiropractic, a lot of people do, but some chiropractors, all they do is just like adjustments, but there's more to chiropractic that some specialize in. But, if you can understand if you have muscle weakness or imbalances in muscle, then you can recalibrate, because a lot of times if it's not overuse, a bone spur, like I have one from an accident, car accident. And, I always monitor, it's just kind of funky little dot, like above my ankle. But for some people it develops because of overuse. Athletes see it. And then sometimes with age. So the big key is making sure that you're articulating your calcium well. Vitamin D, vitamin K is another thing. You want the bone to go to the right bone spots and not to bone development. I hope that makes sense. There's just some things you just can't naturally resolve, and a bone spur is, but preventatively, there are things that you can do. Let's see. Yay, Scout got a clean bill of health and from her pancreatitis and gastroenterosis. Let's see, my chiropractor, hey Christine, always gives me exercises if I complain about something. I love it. Yes, it's good. It's good to exercise. I've kind of gotten out of my back stuff. I told Brian about the amazing power of a foam roller, and he loves it so much. He uses mine all the time. It's not as like tight and thick. He has like a little divot, so I have to get a new one. But foam rolling is really great for helping you adjust kind of naturally. It's very gentle, but I've noticed big change by doing that. Dwayne, my dog is sick, no energy, throwing up, diarrhea, will only eat. Oh no, doctor gave her nausea shot. I hate to hear that. Hopefully she didn't eat anything bad. I go back to rice, chicken, bananas, apples. I go back to my whole food roots with them. And I even get the thing, if you can get tripe, it's green tripe. A lot of times the natural food stores will have it in the frozen section. Or if you have a butcher, you just say, I want the tripe. It's disgusting and it smells absolutely wretched, but it is so good for dogs. And I use that with Mizuki, and it has enzymes and probiotics, and it's very healing. It'll resolve any digestive grievances. Okay, so one more question. I've got to run because Brian has a 10 a.m. appointment. Grand Design, thank you. I love how smart you are. I was able to answer any question. That's actually how I got my feet wet with speaking. I used to be on a speaker circuit at a assisted living facility community that they were catering to people they wanted to market to, and they'd have hundreds show up every Saturday. And I'd present, and then all of a sudden it turned into like an hour question fest. And that I actually love, because there's so much that I don't always get to say on YouTube, and love to answer questions directly. So I appreciate you appreciating that. Okay, Jean, one more question. Do you recommend taking serrapeptase for lipedema and lymphedema? I do if we have some scarring, if we also have fibrotic tissue. And there is now, I've got to do a video on this, but there is a gene that's been recognized that is a lymphatic disparament. Hold on, let me think. Dysfunction, a lymphatic dysfunction gene. I can't remember the name of the gene, but an article just came out. Science is out this week. And I do want to put out a video that highlights that, explains what that means, and then how can you possibly get that test. Okay, so Ann Lynn, yeah, thuja is most commonly known for warts, but it is great for hair loss. And the other homeopathic, I think we should all be taking, and I'll make sure I post this, but it's Phosphoricum acidum. It's backwards on here, but this is a homeopathic that addresses stress and mental fatigue. It technically relieves poor concentration due to overwork, but it's also stress-induced. So stress-induced hair loss, stress-induced heart palpitations, all that can benefit from that homeopathic. I'll post these links. I've got to run. I'm going to go. Gabriel's has his 10 to 10:30 block. It's a busy day. Kid has Spanish also, and then he has karate later today. And so I will resume our show on Monday. We'll see you on Monday, and any questions you guys have, definitely save them for next week. We'll be live Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And stay tuned. I have several different announcements coming in over the next week or two about new stuff here that I am trying to cultivate and bring to all of you. So I hope you all have a wonderful, happy day, happy Friday. Enjoy your weekend. Make sure you take time to get outside, especially where it's safe. You know, obviously our friends out west, take care to minimize your exposure, and make sure you do everything in cleaning the air quality of your home. Grab some peace lilies and air cleansing plants as well. Those are beneficial. But also make sure you take care of yourselves this weekend. We are in a slog in terms of this situation, and I just want everybody to stay well through it. And I'm going to be your partner in doing that. All right, everybody, have a great day. It's so good to see everybody. And congratulations, Pat. I'm so happy you have lots of good news this week. All right, you guys, see you later. Bye.